Well, you're part of more than 24 right now, right? Republican attorney generals that are also have a lawsuit or basically object to the federal proposal on teaching the critical race theory. I mean, I think you saw, like everyone else, what happened in Loudoun County, and that's not too far from where I live. Parents standing up to the school district and saying, this will not be taught in our schools. We object to this, and they shut down the meeting. And any parents who were left, one was arrested. They just basically said, meeting's over. They didn't even want to hear what the parents had to say. They want to implement this divisive, I call horrific, program into our school system and on a federal level. Listen to this. This is a Secretary of Education. I don't even want to give him that title, Miguel Cardona, and he talks about how the pandemic made education gaps worse, but how, it's necessary basically to implement critical race theory. Listen to this.
Far too long, students, especially students of color, have not been able to access quality education the way other students have. So we have to be ambitious to close gaps, to close opportunity gaps that exist, make sure that all students can succeed. And what I want parents to know is that you are your child's first and most influential teacher, and we are a supportive cast. That the expectation is that there's stakeholder engagement to talk about how these funds are going to be used and how the plans that should have equity as a backbone of it are influenced by your input as well. It's going to take all of us to come together in ways that we haven't in the past to make sure we redesign education to provide better outcomes than have been provided before. It wasn't the pandemic that created gaps. It made them worse. They were there before. So it's time to build back better.
What can you do to help stop this? I know you sent the letter to the Department of Education, but they are in full force mode to implement this into our school systems, to ensure that this critical race theory is in our school systems. And a lot of times they've lied to parents about it. And it isn't until the parents actually see the books or hear a teacher's lecture or sees a video of a teacher in a classroom that they know that it's even going on at the school level.
Yeah, Sarah, I actually think this is one of the greatest threats to our country. And I know there's people that talk about this, but I think we need to fundamentally understand what's going on. The whole critical race theory and even the 1619 Project is, quite frankly, a neo-Marxist idea concept. That if people have studied history, know what's going on, that even people like Sal Alinsky, even more recently, and you read the Communist Manifesto, it's all about destroying institutions. Because if you want this revolution, if you want to have a new revolution, you have to destroy the church, you have to destroy the family, and ultimately you have to have people, even in the middle, thinking the system is so bad and corrupt that they have to tear it down. So here in the United States and other parts of the world, it hasn't happened because people haven't bought into the whole class theory of Marxism and the bourgeois versus the proletariat and everything else.
Correct.
So to me, this is just a disguise. It's like the Trojan horse. They're coming in and they're saying, okay, how can we get middle American independence to think that America is so bad we have to tear everything apart? Well, here's what it is. We'll come up, and they've said this, that they're going to come up with an idea and a concept that essentially this country is so flawed and that it's designed in racism, it's so baked in the cake, that we have to tear everything down. And so what we need to understand, what people need to understand, listen to this podcast, is we need to push back. And so next time their basic premise is that the United States was founded, that's why they call it 1619, because that's when the first slaves were forced here into the colonies in Virginia. And so they've said that because of that, and then the American Revolution, the whole theory is the revolution was fought not for independence and freedom, but to protect the institution of slavery. And because of the South, the institution of slavery, that's what made this country economically powerful. And as a result of that, there's all this racism baked in the system. And it's fundamentally flawed. And this is what I would remind people. In fact, I've got my pocket Declaration of Independence and Constitution right here, which we should all carry around.
Right, I've got one too.
We know from the Constitution that when they laid out, why are we having a revolution? Why are these framers of the Constitution willing to risk their lives and everything for these ideas? It says they wanted to make sure they created a society where rights were respected, where life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what government is designed to do, to secure these rights. And if you look through the 27 grievances, if you look through all the things they were complaining about that King George was doing, forcing judges to do his will, quartering troops, plundering, the colonies, taxation without representation, There's 27 grievances. You know what's never mentioned in the Declaration of Independence? Slavery, because it wasn't about slavery. It was designed to create a more perfect union. And we talk about this, you know, when the Constitution was adapted, they didn't say a perfect union, they said more perfect union. And the framers of our Constitution, if you look at what they did at that moment in history, you know, there was monarchies in most of the world. You had theocracies, you had these oligarchy/dictatorships. And instead they went back and they looked at other forms of government, Rome and Greece, everywhere else. And they said, you know what, we're going to have a place where the people can govern through the representatives, and this fundamental understanding that government is not instituted to give you your rights, to tell you what to think and believe, but government is designed to maximize liberty and protect your rights. And that's the fundamental thing we have to understand.